So to start things out, you'll be thinking about this now. Let me ask you a question. Now you have to think about this, not just now, but when you go out. What if you had no one at all to depend upon for anything at all? What if you had nothing, no exterior things to... I'm not talking about physical objects. You depend upon a car to get you here. What if you had no psychological dependencies at all? You were all alone, nothing. You couldn't depend on anyone. You had no one at all. You're completely alone. Now I'll ask you a question. What would be your state if you had nothing to depend upon? You know what it would be? Did you want to comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
We would see all our negativities, that's for sure.
Pardon?
We would see all our negativities, that's for sure. Our, especially loneliness.
All right, yes, I understand. But what if, let's go one step deeper than that, though. What if you really had nothing to depend upon? Now, think about this. I understand what you said. If you had no one to depend on, nothing to depend on, not the grocerman for food, but if you had no one to depend upon to keep you from being lonely, to keep you from feeling alone, if you had nothing whatsoever, what would be your state? Now stop right there and think. If you really had nothing and saw this state, you'd be out of it. You couldn't be lonely. You couldn't be afraid of anything. You see this? No dependency, no one to lean on, really being in this state, not saying you are, equals total inner freedom. Where there's dependency, where there's expectation, where there's hope for something better tomorrow, there is what? There is fear and there is anxiety. Because you were saying quite unconsciously to yourself, this is what you're saying. It's wrong, but this is what you're saying. You're saying, I am incomplete as I am right now. Therefore, if I can hold on to this wife, this husband, this family, this friend, this position, this prestige, this popularity, if I can either hold on to it or obtain it, then I'll be complete. I'm incomplete now. When I get these things, these so-called advantages, then I will not be afraid anymore. But it is the very wish to be secure that causes the insecurity, because the whole thing is an illusion. So what do you have to do? Now you tell me. If you have seen this in yourself, that you are saying, I am afraid, therefore to be unafraid, I must do something, I must get something. If you see through this, then what will you do next? And before you answer, let me tell you that you will do nothing at all. Right? Because if you do something, you are still doing something under the assumption that something outside of your own understanding can dissolve the anxiety, the loneliness, the insecurity, the fear of the future. Any kind of fear. So what do? See? Don't read books, the usual books on how to be a relaxed person. It'll never work. There's only one way to be really relaxed, is to understand this one point right here. How can a non-existent person have any anxieties when you don't exist as a person who is seeking, who is looking for something? If he or she doesn't exist, then there's no person, no entity to dissolve the anxiety. I'm sure many of you have read books in which it says that you are your own anxiety, which is a fact. There is not you and loneliness. There is just you, which is loneliness itself. So by seeing this, and by no longer trying to escape it, seeing it ends both you and the loneliness which you were. What a saving of energy and of time and of false moves we find by not chasing anymore, by staying right with the problem until we call its bluff, see through the hoax of it. Then what do you have to do in life? People, see, they always come to the same questions. They say, well, what on earth, if my life is going to be so content and so peaceful, what on earth am I going to do with it? There's no answer to a question like that. And of course, you know that I would say to them, why don't you find out what happens to you when you're in this state? Which is always a little surprising because it never really occurs to anyone that what we're talking about is a very, very personal thing. It's something you have to experience, something you have to be in. What do you do? Then for the first time, you live your life instead of the life of your grandfather, who said something to you when you were 8 years old, and he said it with a frightened face, and that stuck with you and it hardened your mind. And then your grandmother did the same thing, and then your father and mother did the same thing, and your school teacher did the same thing. You weren't living your life at all for all these years, but you didn't know it. Now you're understanding that you have not lived your own life. Your own life being a life that is free from all conditioning, and therefore free from all anxiety, from all wish to find something, to find someone. Then ends all sorts of dreary compromises, doing things you really don't want to do in order to hold this person into your life, spending money on them that you really resent spending on them. But that's beside the point. That's another subject. I'm just saying you will stop wasting yourself to hold on to this person who has nothing to give you anyway and never did. Stop and look at it. Stop and look at your life exactly as it is right now. See the suffering, see the anxiety, and say, instead of running away from it by getting new friends and attending this social gathering, I'm going to stay home and suffer consciously with it for once and watch myself shake and understand what is going on. Then, if tomorrow night it's too much for you and you go out to the social gathering or you get involved with this other foolish person, you've just got rid of one foolish person and you go on to another one because you don't know the difference yet between a foolish person and a person who has found himself. And that's because you or I are still foolish. We haven't found ourselves as yet. Whatever lovely ideals I have toward myself, I will project it toward you and say that you are lovely. We can both be psychopaths and call each other Christians or good people. All right. What would you like to say?
Well, that isn't a passive thing at all, is it?
Pardon?
It isn't a passive thing at all, is it? It's a very...
All right. Very dynamic,
Yeah.
very active, but we have a word problem, don't we?
Yes.
You say to a person who's come here for the first time maybe, this is a dynamic, terrific thing. It's a thing of enthusiasm. It is both true and it's false, depending on how you're using these words. If you mean dynamic in the sense that all these phony, false characteristics that we have, the phony enthusiasm, then of course we're not talking about that at all. We're talking about true energy, right energy, truly constructive energy, which comes first through a tremendous self-honesty. Otherwise, we're going to be carried away and we're going to think that we're changing ourselves when all we've changed is a pack of ideas about ourselves and about life. People go to these courses and to these mystic schools and to psychology classes and churches, and they get a set of rules. And they can tell you every sentence in this rule. They can teach them. They can write books on them. They haven't changed themselves one bit. They're still as afraid as they were before. And if you don't think so, you say one little thing that challenges their fixed ideas, which you shouldn't do. You'll know better than to talk to people about anything except those who are interested. You say one little word about it and watch their response to it. Watch how upset or defensive or offensive they become. If you're defending anything you do not know, when you don't have to defend anything, really defend it, you know. Does God need to be protected by you? Does truth need protection? Not in the slightest. Only in the sense that when you're working on these things, you protect it and you keep it truly protected by not giving it to people who don't want it, and especially by not permitting people who are lost to influence you, which they will always try to do. People who do not know. Now, this is not condemning them. I'm saying you don't condemn a mad dog for biting you. You don't condemn him. You understand this is his nature. He has no way to behave but that way. But you get away from him and you stay away from this mad dog. Okay? It's dynamic. You know, you watch yourself. As you become receptive to this new dynamic power, force, if you want to call it that, will change you. You will know it. You will see it. You'll feel it. You will be it. And you'll talk to nobody about it.
There's so many traps in this. As far as depending for people to cover my loneliness or happiness or whatever you want to call it. Now, if I depend on you, Mr. Howard, for security, I'm in the same trap.
Exactly. Why?
I just went from one place to the other one. It was the same thing you just got through saying of going from staying away from one party and then going back to another party. I'm still trying to escape this awful ache I have in myself. I need your knowledge, but if I depend on you for security, I'm in trouble.
That's another thing.
Yeah,
Right? You can find a man or a book, a right book, which for good reasons I don't like to go into too much here. If you can get a right book or a person who knows the truth, for heaven's sake, listen to what he has to say and read his books, not necessarily mine. And there are such people. Now I'll tell you something kind of personal with some of you here. Some of you, in fact, perhaps all of you, a matter of degree, have a very unhealthy attitude toward, I'm not referring to myself, and I'm not going to mention any names, toward people who have found the truth. You have a part, I say a part, and I know another part is right, but you have a certain worshipful attitude toward human personality. And these people, this gentleman in particular, would be first to tell you to stop it. This is a waste of energy, a waste of attention. For heaven's sakes, listen to him. Read his books. But a party to you that needs, still a part that hasn't died yet to this, still needs a God in human form. And you're going to have to die to this. Then you will have right attitudes toward people who know the truth. And you will not be wasting a lot of time in wrong emotional attitudes toward these people. There are very few of them, so. Yes, all dependency is bad. And when there is you, listen, when there is you, a Tom Smith, a Mary Jones, and the truth you're depending upon, that is still dependency. You, as a separate self, are still leaning on this truth to pull you through. Now, if you will give up being Tom Smith or Mary Jones, so that there is no you anymore at all, then you become that very truth itself. Now, in this new state, there is no division and therefore no dependency. Do you follow this? Where there is a you and the truth, there's still division, still fear, still loneliness, still wanting something. where there's no you anymore in the old described self, then there's just the truth, which, see, we have word trouble, don't we? Then you are that truth itself. I and my Father are one.
So the whole self is always demanding other things
Yes.
all the time.
Always demanding things in an attempt to feel secure, an attempt to build this false self, made up of ideas and made up of violence, masquerading as brotherhood and peace, made up of fear and tension. Watch people. You watch people in their families. You know them. I know them. You watch them in their private life when you're invited over to dinner or you visit them. You watch the sudden change in expression when the wife of the family is crossed by the husband or vice versa. Watch the slight change in expression. That is fear, because the opposite sex, the spouse, didn't behave in the proper way to make a good impression or something like that. This is fear. This is division.
What keeps people hanging on to the whole self?
Well, because we will do anything but admit that we have no self at all, which we don't have. I don't want to give up my idea that get right back to the idea of egotism, of separation. Let's take an example. I'll use myself. Suppose I started at 20 and worked real hard, started with nothing, made a lot of money. I became financially successful, I became famous, I ran for public office, I became the mayor of the city. Already at 40, 50, or 60, I am so hardened, you'll never get through to me, you'll never get through to them. I've become so hardened in the idea that not only do I exist as Tom Smith, Mary Jones, but that I, as a separate self and ego, did all these things. I am the achiever. Look, I wish there was a steel block here so I could describe the way people are. And you know it. You've seen a block of steel that thick. You're going to talk to that block of steel about these things? Try it. And we'll never give it up. This is why if you have any sense at all of what you're getting here, don't run away. Hang on to it for dear life. This is your salvation. I hope you understand this. You know, I sit here sometimes where there's 5 people or 50 people, and in my mind all this time, I know that what I'm saying is just going out, and that's the end of it. This is why you're never encouraged to come back, you know, particularly given false promises and all that. When it's over, you just walk out and that's it. Because either what has been said here has hit something way back here or it hasn't. And that's all there is to it. You walk out of here. It's your decision. Right? When you first see this, that you have to start giving up the phony notion that you did a thing at all. You watch how the devil attacks and fights and scares you. But if you can notice this fighting, this resistance, you're on the way. Be very grateful for that and hang on to that. To see that you know that the devil never really fights with the majority of people. Why do you don't fight a slave? You've got him. But when you can see that he's fighting you, that's a sign you're waking up, and he is getting anxious. I'm using allegory, of course. The devil is getting anxious that he's going to lose you. And he'll try every trick in the book to hang on to you. He'll make you criticize. You know what he'll criticize? He'll criticize the way the speaker gestured, or the way the speaker looked, or he didn't look like I thought he would look, or he's too young, or he's too old. Or those people there, they didn't seem like any different than the enthusiastic people at this meeting we went to. There was life down at that meeting. Every trick in the book.
Also, when you, also when you do live in truth, you are not conscious of it. So because you are it, right?
You're one with it.
Once you begin to think, well, this is truth, then you are separate from it. So that it's a completely unconscious way of being, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, let's track it
You're
down.
not aware
Right.
that you're
You start on the mental level by thinking about truths on the level of knowledge. That's where we start. We have to use our minds, our everyday minds. That's good. That's the lower step, but it's a different step. You get ideas in your mind. I say to you, you and truth, this gentleman, this lady, this other, these two gentlemen, I say to you, all of you are one with truth. Right now, not tomorrow when you understand these things. Right now, you are one with truth. I say this to you. This is a fact. It really is a fact. It is not a whole experience, a realization to you yet, but it is a fact. New York is 3,000 miles away. It exists as a fact. You may not have been there, but it's a fact, as an existence. Now we have the idea about it, right? That you are one with truth. But you're still thinking about it. This is what you're getting at, right? You're still thinking about it. So, now you drop thought, which was proper. Buddha used the illustration that if you cross a river, you use a raft. But when you get across the river, you don't carry the raft on your back, you let it go. You're across. So, you don't think about the truth except when you want to, but you're no longer thinking that there is a you who thinks about the truth, and therefore you're divided. So you can still think about the truth if you want to, but you understand that you are one with the whole business. But as you said, this is not thinking about it. Then you can simply understand without thought that this is a fact. Now you are indeed one with the truth, whether you think about it or not. Right? People can get a fact and completely distort it because they refuse to go beyond that to the depth of the false sense of self. And so an enormous vanity comes in. God sent me as a missionary to the heathen in Africa. Isn't this tremendous? The man who formed the universe spoke to me and said, go save the heathen. Never seeing where the heathen really is. See the vanity of it? Now, and they will even say, I and God, I and truth are one, which is a fact, but it's not an experience with them because they're hanging on to the I, to the self. Do you understand this?
By topping out all our these desires and cravings and acquisitions that you speak of, there is the tremendous fear that we will exist in a vegetative state.
Right. Who will discuss that?
That's what I meant by the path. You're not passive, really, when you're in that state at all. You're most alive.
For the first time.
Yeah.
This is the
I
hard
used
part
to
to
wonder
understand.
about it being a vegetative state, but
I know.
that goes away and you find out then you're really alive. And once in a while you think, well, really maybe I should be doing something, but you don't. You just stay alive where you are. It's better.
Do you know that if peace was a physical object like this here, had a label peace on it, and it was free, and you handed it to people out there, they would refuse it. You know why? You know why they refuse it? Peace? You mean I can't scream at the football game? I can't scream at my wife anymore, or at my husband, or my kids anymore? I can't go to the political party and act like an idiot? They don't want peace, because with real peace, there's no you. They're not going to give that up. People are very afraid of truth, of liberty. So this knowledge is good. To understand why we're afraid of it, for example. We're afraid that without this I, who will I be? We're seeing that the fear itself is false, because it's on the level of division, which always has opposites.
When you say the Father and I are one, is that I a different type of I? Is that the real self I?
All right, okay. We have to use words to talk, to communicate, right? We're also communicating without words, aren't we? You know it.
Yes.
But we have to use words. So as long as you understand that we're simply using words for convenience, to understand, to help us a little bit, but not identify with the word. If I say, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to talk with you, when I say I, all unconscious to me, I have an idea of being the great teacher, or you're the humble student who is devoted to God's truth. See? Then you have an I, and I have an I, and we're going to lie to each other all day long. But as long as we understand that they are labels for convenience, just like it says peaches instead of apricots, so you'll get whichever one you want at the grocery market, then there's no problem. So you can then use labels freely without identifying with them. Then there's no problem. Then you can say, I and my Father are one, without this I being apart from the Father. Because God, truth, is above words, above labels, above division.
Mr. Howard, should we really think about the state when you are freed? Because would it not be a projection? How can I think what it's going to be like when I have the same mind?
Right.
It's just going to be a projection of what I want.
Right.
In my present state, it's
Yeah,
not.
your memory coming up and saying this is the way it should be. I was successful in my business, and now tomorrow should be successful
Right.
too in order to keep me secure.
Mhm.
That's living in time, and we've gone into time many times before. We have to live with right now, this second, where we're sitting here. So there's no past, and if there's no past, there's also no future, because they too are opposites. Right. You can't think about God, about truth. You understand? We've covered this just a minute ago. You can think, but you can't create it in any way. And it doesn't need creation at all. When you're not, God exists when you're not thinking about God in relation to me. When I worship God, I'm living in illusion. When I say, use certain religious phrases that Christ has saved me, I'm living in illusion. See, you see another mistake people make? They call this humility. I am a child of God. Beware of children of God.
Well, then we shouldn't even say God like it's separate, whatever it is. Whenever we say, you know, I am this, a child of God, or I seek God, or seek truth, we're separating ourselves, aren't we?
Yes. But if you understand it, then go ahead and use it freely. Go ahead, even to other people. Because if you're explaining these things to them, then you could explain that to them.
Yeah. Well, an explanation is like a blueprint, really,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Sure. As long as you
have to
understand.
draw lines and use words so you can see it there.
But you watch yourself. And I will tell you that this idea of division, of separation from the truth, from God, if you'd like to use that term, which is perfectly all right as long as you understand it is much deeper and much more tenacious and treacherous than we can imagine. We don't see it, which is why we always have to come back to watching our thoughts, to watch the thought, to see, for example, when I said God sent me to Africa as a missionary, there was great vanity in that. And people who do that, they're competitive with another religious group who God called them. And they're very competitive with other so-called Christians. There's something wrong when I need to compete with you for anything, even with spiritual truth. If I need to teach you, if you need to be the humble, adoring disciple, which does not mean it's wrong to listen to these things or read good books. Because our aim is to go beyond this remnant of worship, or maybe a whole lot of worship. Which means you have to give up many things. The need to teach others, which is usually a stage. You start to give that up, then you come into conflict. Because, well, look, I've worked hard all these years and I found out the truth, and my own wife won't even listen to me. You thought she was going to be interested, didn't you? She has no more interest in this. She never will, probably. Or your husband, or your children. Bring your children into this. How many mistakes we make toward children, the children in our family. For example, a child goes wrong, and what is your reaction? You add them up. Guilt, shame, I failed. Where is the attention? On you. You wanted the child to be a success so as to be a credit to you, didn't you? You're all mixed up. You don't even know how deep it is. You have to be free of yourself, and then you'll be free of your children. Then if they want to listen, and shall I say it, come right out with it, In most cases, they will not want anything to do with this. Most cases. This is not a problem to you. Don't you know your children? Look, you are your parents' child. And you have these children. You have grandparents, you have you, and you have children and grandchildren. Don't you know that everybody is an individual with his own responsibility? That 6-year-old child walking across the room is going to grow up into a human being who has his responsibility for finding himself here on earth. It would have been much better if I hadn't have used our children to get our own sickness out, snapping at them because we were sick. It might have been a little better. But if you have found yourself, then free yourself of guilt of anything you may have done to your children or to your ex-wife or ex-husband. You start fresh right now, right this second. You do not live in time at all. You do not have a self that lives in time. You are not the same person right now as you were 10 minutes ago sitting here. Physical body is the same because that's on another level. And even that has changed slightly because it lives in time. Yes?
There are 3 billion people or more on the earth. Couldn't there be 3 billion different interpretations of truth?
No, sir, there could not be.
What is truth to each individual?
All right, let's get the word interpretation. The truth never needs interpretation. When you interpret the truth, listen, when you interpret the truth, look, everyone here, no, let's not take everyone here, everyone out there says, I have the truth, my church has the truth. No, my church has the truth. No, my group has the truth. Every individual is interpreting. So far, okay? And every one of them is wrong, because the truth cannot be interpreted. It can only be, listen, don't you dare try to interpret the truth. You either accept it or you reject it. See? When you say, I am interpreting the truth, you are rejecting the truth. Because you don't want it. I'm not just speaking to you, I'm speaking to everyone.
It
There's-
is.
Pardon?
It is.
It is. All right. Very good. You have to go through this to see this. Otherwise you'll say, my truth is just as good as yours. What I call my truth is simply something that I got from childhood at my church or my social group or reading books I read that I got that made me feel like somebody. And this is what I like. I'm somebody. Yeah? You're going to ruin your life being this somebody. And you have ruined it. Every day you've ruined it. And you won't face it because you have never been honest with yourself. You would rather lie and be miserable than tell the truth and find the way out. Right? Right. Say to yourself, I am going to, as much as I can bear, drop my opinion of what the truth is. And this is all it is, your opinion on the mental level. And when you do this, it will cause you suffering and it will cause you fear. Now you tell me why, because I've covered this. When you drop an opinion, an idea that divides you from the man across the street and his opinion and his idea, you become anxious. You tell me why.
Because your interpretation of the truth would have given you security.
Pseudo-security.
Yeah.
Yes. It gives you I know the truth. Not only that, but you know Senator so-and-so, and you know Mayor, and you know the head of the billion-dollar corporation. He's one of the members of our church, the leading members of the church. This man has 8 college degrees. Oh, how foolish. You want to cry sometimes. The block of steel is that thick. Look, I'll tell you what we have to do. I'll tell you what I have to do, what you have to do. Using all these things we're talking about. I have to see that what I call my truth, let's put it in quotation marks for now. What I have called my truth, look, it's as plain as that chair. I have to see that what I have called my truth has made me. Now, I wish I had a lot more fingers. It has made me anxious. It has made me hostile. It has made me frightened. It has made me fear that I'm not going to make a good impression on you. It has made me put on a false front that just wears me out, keeping this smile in place, because I don't feel like smiling at all. I'd rather cry. I have to see what I am doing to myself. Now it gets more frightening. Remember what we said? It gets more frightening, because now I have to take the next step of giving up what I've called me, which is a big, phony, false personality. I have to begin to die to it. Die daily. Give it up. And then the devil attacks, and he tells all kind of lies, which is why most people will never get out of the trap. Very few people you know, if any of the people you know, relatives, will ever make it out. And if they heard me saying this, I know what they would say, and so do you. They would scorn it. That self-righteous man, see? You're hearing the truth here. Excuse me. Go ahead.
In other words, what we do when we're escaping into this world of me, we're trying to create the world according to our idea of
Sure.
it.
And how does it make you feel? You tell me, just as
I
personal.
would get awfully tired. When I used to try to do it so much, I would get so exhausted physically trying to create the world and hold it together.
Yes.
Because, people just don't do what you want them to do.
Of course they don't. We never
Very
get...
exhausting.
That's the answer to everything.
Pardon?
I said, that's the answer to everything.
No. If you said, that was a good phrase, if you said, I'm not going to... Boy, just stop and think of what you're saying and hang on to something when you say it, because it's going to shake you. From this day on, I am not going to try to hold my world in place. You say that and see how it shakes you. See? But you do it, and you see what happens, and you hang on to the truth. Hang on, and keep shaking, and watch what happens. You'll have a very strange experience inwardly. Something very strange will happen to you. And this strangeness, you know what it is? It's the same thing as authentic mental health. Don't try to hold your world together. Someone who's doing you some good, giving you things, wants to leave you. And don't go the opposite and say, well, if you want to go, you get out, I'll find someone else. Now you're still afraid. Just quietly sit there. Let other people make decisions toward you. Don't make decisions toward them at all. Never make any decision. That's an I. If they want to leave you, just sit there silent and see whether they mean it or not. And they'll go crazy. They'll go in the door and out the door a dozen times. But if you add to it, then your neurosis is adding to their neurosis. Let them go or let them stay. You be healthy. This is what is meant by not trying to hold your world together. Then, you see what happens? You see? Then, there is no you and the world and your world. There is just the world, or you. You are your world. I know what you're thinking.
In other words, I had such experience of this. I was very devoted to my religion. That's what I thought. And I would fight anybody. Anybody that contradicted my religion, I would really jump on them. But still, I thought I was very saintly, very nice, very good. I really treated people real nice. And I hated the rest of the religion.
Yeah.
So and when I saw this was shocking. I mean, I actually saw it, that I was pretty mean. I wasn't the person that I thought I was.
Right. That's the start, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's shocking, isn't it?
That's right.
Hmm? Terrible, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But good. Healthy. When you pull a mask off that's been on there for 30, 40 years, it sticks, and that hurts. Pulling all that skin and hair. It hurts. But get it off. Were you going to say
Yeah,
something?
because I think I've had the same thing as one. And it was a terrible, terrible struggle. I had it quite a few years ago. Probably the same religion. And the mask gradually drops away, and you see how
unreligious religion can be.
Right.
Because
Right.
it professes to love and do all these things while it's hating every minute of the time.
Mhm.
And you're programmed as a little child. And it's so hard to see where you began and where your programming began. I mean, you're really programmed into it. So that you really don't have any basis except really turning within yourself for the truth. You are told all this stuff, and you've never questioned it, or maybe you have, but you have to really go on faith to do this, to look at it and see it for what it is, and then let it go. And it's a very, very terrible experience.
It's a
So
struggle, isn't it?
it's
A painful
terrible,
thing.
terrible
Yes,
struggle.
I know.
But once it's all seen, you wonder why you could have even thought it was
Yeah,
right in
right,
the first place.
right, right.
It's a wonderful thing to be free of that. It really is.
Juan made the remark the other day. He was talking with someone who's involved in a very aggressive type of religion, and he was talking with him, and Juan made the remark about this man that he didn't even see his contradictions. This is what you're talking about in one way. A person can get up in the pulpit and rage and rant and throw out hatred, and in the next breath he'll say, Christ has made us all one brethren. And you stand, at first you do, and then it becomes so, you're not shocked. Doesn't he see the contradiction in it? He doesn't. He doesn't.
He may, but he hides it.
All right, that's okay. He hides it.
For himself.
Yes. Uh-huh. Here's 5,000 people in that auditorium screaming, hiding it from themselves. And each one is a coward. Mobs are cowards, even our religious crowds. They're all depending on the next man. Well, look at him. He's a big famous man. Look at him scream. I guess it's all right for me. Dependency again on a crowd. Stand all alone. Don't go to crowds. That's all for now. We'll have to wait a minute here. Let me say something that might at the start sound very elementary to you. But I want you to think about this. You think about this not only now and comment it on it too, please. But as you go out of here, between now and the next meeting, you think about this simple fact. Because I know that some of you don't really see it. I know you don't. You will even sit here and tell me you do, but I know you don't. It's so simple. The truth, capital T this time, so we make it a bigger thing. The truth actually exists. When you think about what the truth is, on the level of words, on the level of memory, you may think that you understand it. This connects with what you said somewhat. To think about the truth is not the same thing as being one with it. But as long as we are thinking about the truth and even saying that it exists, thinking about it so that there is an I and the truth, we'll deceive ourselves into thinking that we know that the truth exists. We do not know it because knowing is not on the level of memory, of thought, of accumulated doctrines. So to know the truth is the same as being one with it right now, right this very second, without thinking about it. I'm going to tell. Shall I tell you something that will happen to you if you continue to work on this in time? It's like standing in a field in the dark before dawn and looking at that ridge, that low ridge where the sun is going to come up. And you're standing there and maybe not even particularly watching this little glow you first see out there, but you're standing there and maybe you're doing something else. You're taking a drink of water, just sitting on your camping blanket or whatever. And all of a sudden, as you're doing these other things, your attention, I'm not being dramatic, this is the way it'll work. You watch, you see. All of a sudden, more and more, you'll find your eye glancing up there, and you see a little light up there that wasn't there a minute ago. Then you'll go back to fixing your camping equipment. And all of a sudden, in spite of yourself, you'll glance up there again, but it's still not registered yet. It's not conscious, it's not bright enough. But way back while you're reaching for the canteen of water to get a drink, all of a sudden your eye will, while your hand is here, your eye will go back to it. You know what I'm getting at. Gradually and gradually, the dawn will come in your mind that all these things we've been talking about are real. They are true. And what you thought at the start was a nice little religious conversation group where you came and heard truths that are a little bit different, but it's just a nice little group of the kind that I've been to before. It'll suddenly dawn on you. You'll be walking out of here one day, and you'll stop in your tracks because the dawn will suddenly become so bright you won't be able to ignore it anymore. And you will know. And then you'll be one with the truth, and you will know that it actually exists. And then nothing in your life will ever be the same again. Your relations with other people, with your work. Outwardly, you will go through your life exactly the same as before. Not exactly. I'll take that back. More or less. You'll still go shopping. You'll still cook dinner for the family. You may sit and watch television at night. You'll conduct your business. You'll sell homes. You'll manufacture nuts and bolts or whatever you do for a living. But inwardly, you will be a totally new human being. And you will know that every time you talk with these other salesmen, these other people, your own relatives, and there's no egotism in it, because if there's egotism, then you're still identified with your religion, with your thoughts. But you know that all these people are never going to find what you have found. Not that you're superior, but simply that you got so tired of living in illusion and of paying the price. You're going to find out that we're not just friends here, we are, but what we're studying is a very real thing. I can't explain it any better than that, but I will tell you that you will see that dawn there. From then on, everything will be different. And more, your life will change. Your attitudes toward everything will change, because your attitude toward what you call yourself has changed. All right.
Will the truth have to disturb us? You know, here I am 2,000 miles away. I don't even know you. So I get one of your books, and I find myself getting angry and angrier and angrier at this book.
This is a personal experience, isn't it?
That's right. So I look at this book and I thought, well, it's only a book. But I have studied many things, and I compare this with the New Testament, where even the disciples had a lot of arguments, a lot of fights. And what Christ said was always displeasing to the crowd, you know. So I said, well, I'm going to look into this, see what this is all about. So I became very irritated. I got worse. I was getting resentful at people in my own family. But I figured there was some nod. I've always been searching for something. So as I continue, he wanted to really attack me and feel real guilty about it and irritated and everything.
Yes.
But as I continue working, I could call the blood for that anger. But he didn't have power over me no more. He still was there, you know, but I could look at it.
Begin to understand why.
That's right, I began to
Why?
understand. And I was feeling something else. This other urge just kept,
A little ray of dawn.
that's right.
Does this sound familiar to some of you?
Very.
See, when you start to wake up, boy, the devil's going to attack. But you find out all his tricks. That's why we're here. To find out that the resistance is going to mount. The man in the canoe going down asleep in the canoe toward the waterfall has no fight in him at all. He has no conflict. A man asleep in the canoe is dreaming beautiful thoughts about money or sex or whatever he dreams about. He has no problems. You shake him awake and tell him, well, look what's down there. Man, he's gonna wake up, he's gonna paddle like crazy to get to the shore. We're paddling like crazy. You shake that man in the canoe a little and wake him up, one little eye opens, he's gonna hate you. What are you waking me up for? He goes back to sleep. he doesn't want to be awakened, you'd better not try. You get up to 30% of living from yourself and 70% of living from your old ideas, from the pressures out there, from attractive women or attractive men, or from money or sports or whatever attracts you. And you're still pretty much gone, but you've got 30% already. See, and you're working. Pretty soon, when it gets over to 51%, you're on the way. Nothing will ever. You wouldn't dream of staying away from a meeting where you could hear the truth. Not necessarily this one, but including this one. You wouldn't dream of it.
But all these things are crutches that you have just mentioned. I mean, these are crutches, and you say we're healthy when we can knock our crutches out from under.
Sure.
Is this true?
Well, sure. Since when is a crutch healthy?
Well, so.
Yeah, walk on our own 2 feet. Look at all the troubles you have. You look in your own lives. You look in your personal life. You look in yours. I'll look in mine. Look in your personal life and find out where you have a crutch, a dependency. You want this woman. Don't fight with your wife or husband over this. We're saying study. Look at it. Don't go out and fight with people. Don't use this as an excuse. You've got it all wrong. There's something wrong with you. You find out where you're depending on someone to keep you secure, to keep you from being lonely and afraid, for example, because those are very basic, being lonely and afraid, right? All your friends are lonely and afraid. They'll never tell you that, though, because they're involved in excitements. You find out where you're depending on someone and then say, I'm going to stay right where I am, physically, carry on every day exactly the way I am, but inwardly, mentally, spiritually, do you want to use that word? I'm going to free myself of every human being on earth, starting with the closest one, because I can work here better with this person, with friend or whatever. You name it. You know who it is. And I'm not going to be unkind to anyone. I'm not going to push anyone out of my life. I'm not going to necessarily attract anyone into my life. I'm going to understand what it's all about. Then there'd be no problems at all with other people in your life or out of your life. Anyone can leave you that wants to. That's up to them. Remember I said let them walk out of the door or stay in the door. That's up to them. They have a problem. You don't have a problem anymore, because you're not depending upon them to keep your world in place. Then every human relationship will be right, because it'll be on the terms of truth. And in the truth there's no fighting, no argument, no conflict, no division. When you are right, your world is right because you are the world.
If you don't care about keeping a person in your life or out of your life, and that person stays in your life because they don't know what else to do with their life, and they don't make it any easier for you. It's a constant. It's like not like a decision that you have to make. It's a decision that they have to make, but they can't make it. What then?
No, you don't make a decision for any other person. Is that what you meant?
You can't make the decision, and they can't make the decision.
Okay.
You know why you can't make the
Okay.
decision, but they don't know why
Okay.
they can't make the
Okay.
decision.
So what is the problem?
It shouldn't be your problem. It's their problem, right?
True, true.
But every now and again, it becomes your problem too.
It becomes your problem because you let it become your problem, because there are still some false ideas in your mind, for example, of about what you owe other people. See, and we've said this before, the only thing you owe any other human being is to be a mature, awakened human being, and nothing else. You offer this to them, not with words. They don't want it. You live it, which they won't know anyway. But you are right within yourself. Then anything that they haven't cleared in their own life is still up to them, not up to you. Don't have false responsibility. This is one of the greatest gains you'll ever make. Freedom from false responsibility toward other people. And they will try to make you feel responsible because they are afraid and they are dependent and they want to hang on to you. And they will say, you're not taking your responsibility toward me. This is a loving family. We should love and cooperate with each other and help each other. And they'll quote the Bible. And they're doing that all to hang on to you and to make you feel guilty. Any human being who tries to make you feel guilty is an evil human being, and don't you listen to them. He's a very evil human being who tries to make you feel guilty in order to get what they want from you. Don't you listen to them.
That takes some watching.
It takes some advanced, yes.
Wow.
Very subtle.
Yeah.
Very subtle.
Very, very subtle.
Right.
Don't you think that the marriage contract has made a lot of people guilty?
Sure it does.
What's written in it.
Sure.
Men saying you have to obey and honor and all this stuff, you know, and just like you were bought at the stake. And so, but that's something a lot of people have to overcome.
So you be happy, and if you're not happy, you feel guilty. Oh.
They say that for about 30 years, and then you know it's not the truth.
Back to this again, one final thought. With anyone, when you are uncomfortable, put it this way, because of another person's problem or their discomfort, of their wrongdoing, their living a life of psychic sleep, if you have a disturbed thought toward it, then your problem is your disturbed thought. Which means you haven't cleared your mind. Yes. Oh, excuse me. I thought you were going to say something profound.
Were you yawning something?
No, I was coming forward.
You, pardon?
You're heading home.
I'm watching your face. You have no right, I'm going to put it this way, you understand it. You have no business letting another person make you feel disturbed about anything at all. Nothing. This means you haven't found yourself yet. You may be on the way. But when you are disturbed over another person's behavior, wife, husband, children, parents, or whatever, if you are disturbed, there's something wrong with the operation of your system. For one thing, you do not see that you are not the savior of these people. You're not a petty God who's going to save anybody else. You cannot save anyone. And when you have saved yourself, you will see that you cannot save anyone. See? And they can't save you. You had to save yourself, didn't you? They have to save themselves, which most people are not going to do. So that ends that right there. One of the stages you go through is the preacher stage. You go around and you get a little bit of truth, and it's right. All right, that 1% is true, and it's real, and it kind of excites you a little bit. Then you go around preaching to people, and you're always shocked to find that they don't want it. They want nothing to do with it. Or, worse than that, they'll pretend to want it, and they'll agree with you and go to meetings with you and read the books. And all the time you're so gullible you think they're changing. They want nothing to do with it. Eventually you have to see this and drop them psychologically. And then it's the decision of a physical relationship or not is up to them. You never have to decide on physical relationships at all. You'd be right. They come or they go. What is this to do with you? You're free of them. You're not depending on them. How clear it all becomes to be working with someone down at wherever you work or living in the home with them, to be wide awake every second in that home or down at work, except where you have to be in the mental part of your mind to type the letter or throw the boxes on the truck. Then you have to think about that, and that's proper. But when you can be free of that and simply walk around outside of thought and be conscious of everything, then you can hear one remark. There's a group of men standing 50 yards down the dock, and you hear one word. Some man says one word, and out of that one word you see 1,000 things about that person. 1,000 things, because you've worked on yourself so that you understand. You say, that's how I used to talk 10 years ago. You see the whole thing, but you've worked on yourself and cleared it out. You could become a real psychologist. You understand psychologists then too, by the way. You see that true mental health is your responsibility to work all by yourself, first of all, then with others who are also interested. And you'll know what true mental health is. and you'll see the insanity of the world, which calls mental health insanity. All your true teachers are ignored by the masses of human beings, people who really knew the truth. And charlatans are made gods because they have bright, dynamic personalities, and they talk well, and they have powerful organizations, and they have money to appear on television, and they know how to lower their voice and to raise their voice at the proper time, and they know how to have background music that swells up at the right minute to provide the proper emotional atmosphere. And millions of human beings sit there lulled asleep by religious dramatics, and they feel God must be here. God has nothing to do with it at all. Yes.
Does the charlatan really believe he's for real? Because does he really believe this is really it?
All right. All of you should know the answer to that. Put about 7 different pieces together and tell me about it. Self-deception, first of all, right?
It would have to be very strong self-deception, though.
Oh, it's the block. We talked.
He has built his image so perfectly that nobody can get through to him.
But
He
it's
knows.
so obvious he's an image, when you look at him, that it's hard to see how he can't have some doubt somewhere.
All right. Very good. Now let's cover that. Did you want to go ahead, Lon?
I want to put myself in that place. I could try to change you. I used to do this,
Yeah.
bring you to my religion. But I was very afraid and very doubtful. But if I could bring you in, I would feel a little more secure. But I won't let you know about it. I didn't know anything about what I was talking about.
Yeah.
But if I could bring you in, I could make feel myself more secure.
And that would make me more powerful in getting you to agree with me, and we would have this
Sure.
structure stronger
Mhm.
and then more invulnerable. You get bigger and bigger all the time.
Whereas if they stop following him, he's going to crumble.
I think.
And
Now look. All of you know very well in your minds that this famous man is an entirely different person when he's all alone or in his immediate family than he is when he's in public. Don't you know that this is a very carefully rehearsed over the years stage performance? This is why I tell you, if you want to know whether a man can give you the truth or not, never mind coming to his meetings or wherever you watch him. All right, that settles the whole thing. You live with him, and you find out how he blows up when the television set blows up and he doesn't get to see his favorite program. You watch how he behaves toward his children, and watch how he ruins them, by the way, as he has ruined himself, because he will also do so. You watch his facial expressions. You watch him when he's caught off guard. You watch a sudden flick of expression in his eyes when something goes wrong, when he's caught out of a role. You watch him when he preaches this big sermon and you go backstage or something and you accidentally go around the corner you're not supposed to go, and he puts a cigarette down like that because his image is being a non-smoker who's conquered smoking. And on and on and on. But that's just the beginning of it. Finally, of course, something in this man knows it's all a fraud, but he'll never make it out. Sally said, there's too many, or whoever said, there's too many eyes, selves already in him who are going to fight the slightest suggestion that he is a fraud.
That's terrible. But that's exactly what the world is.
All right, do you want evidence? Do you want evidence that he knows he's a fake? You tell him he's one. Not out in public, because then never do it in public, because all the other people are faking with him will band together and pounce on you, which shows you're foolish to begin with to ever do a thing like that. But he'll feel real good because he's got all these allies around him. You get him alone on a bus to New York or something, sit next to him, and where he has no friends at all, and where he's temporarily has none of his roles to play, and talk with him, you'll see a totally different human being riding alongside you on this bus than he was in public. But if he knows that you know that he's a big famous man, his role will go on. And you know what he hopes? He hopes you don't know so that he can relax and be himself and take a drink and smoke and swear a little bit, or whatever he does. This is right. This man is suffering terribly from split personality, split division. What a hell he's in.
Isn't it because people need to worship someone, and they built this person, they built these people because out there, if you think somebody is so great and you can worship it, you don't have to look at yourself.
That's right. Of course it is. If you're my guide, I don't have to look down in my own footsteps and correct them if necessary. All I have to do is be a gullible sheep. Follow. And follow right over the cliff, huh? Right? The blind leading the blind. Both fall into the ditch. That's the way it is. It's the way the human race is going. But maybe some of us have got tired of falling down and getting bruised and trying to hold the world in place. It's not going to conform at all. This is a shock.
It's just the opposite. Once it gets rolling, the other
Yeah. Yeah. What if you found out you didn't have to hold it in place at all? What a relief. Which means you have to do other work along with it. Give up the you that is holding it in place. Then life becomes very easy. Yeah, there's no problems. You tell me your problem that you would have. You tell me, please. What problem would you have if you understood all this? Huh? Because you're not saying what I had yesterday, I have to keep in place or have it again tomorrow. That thought doesn't enter your mind at all anymore. You're free right now, this second. Then events come and go, and you are one with the event instead of being apart from it. If you are one thing, how can there be anything opposing you to hit you? It takes two to fight. Let's take 5 minutes more and then we'll stop. Is that all right?
I think every minister or preacher knows he's a fraud.
Knows he's a fraud? Well, as we just said,
Because I think all people know that they are a fraud.
defensiveness of our image, false picture, false images, is a part of it. So when we get defensive, I think I'm honest, I think I'm a leader of mankind, and I should be elected to the office, and you contradict in some way, and I argue with you and fight with you. Why do I argue and fight? Because I know it's a fake. I know it's wrong. But I'll never admit it. I've never had the honesty. Because, may I repeat a phrase? Because when I'm living an illusion and I have these great audiences, whether political or religious or social, maybe I'm a big party giver and I give parties all the time. I spend a lot of money foolishly buying food and things for you so you'll like me. And I begin to see through it, it's going to be too much of a shock for me to give it up. That's all there is to it. Too much of a shock. I can't take the shock. And so I'll continue with it. I can't take it.
And besides, some people don't have any other way to make a living, they think. If they're in, the clergy or something like that, and they've been doing it for 40 years, what are you going to do? They have to face an economic fact. They can't give it up.
That's part of it, making your living.
They're afraid
Yes, yes.
of what will happen.
Yeah.
I think the ones who are successfully in that could be a success in other things too.
Well, there's a terrible fear to
Because there's only a
overcome.
small
You have to
percentage.
really cast your bread on water.
There's only a small percentage who are successful
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah.
When I'm living falsely before other people, which is always the case, of course, and before myself, which is always the case, because I'm deceiving myself and you, I get a false feeling of life from it. Remember that phrase, if you will, because it will make other things clearer. A false feeling of life. I'm a very important person. either publicly or in my daydreams. If for some reason, the course of events, I have not become popular, I'm single, nobody likes me or wants to marry me or whatever, then I will get a false feeling of life through my daydreams, escaping into movies and fiction and things like that, having a dashing husband or a beautiful wife, and the two usually go together. Even if you're famous outwardly, you daydream, because it can't satisfy you at all. But I get a strong false feeling of life from this. This simply means that all these emotions are holding my false identity in place. And very few people will ever die to this, give up this feeling, this agitation, including the agitation of getting mad all the time, of getting hostile, of having enemies. We talked about this before. As long as I have enemies, I feel good, because I maintain myself through identifying you as the enemy. I give up you as the enemy. I no longer hate you. I don't exist as a hater. That is what I fear, dying to being a hater, because it still tells me who I am. You have to go a long ways. I have to go a long ways, right? See how every time we see something, we have to see something deeper behind it, till we track it down to this one. You don't have to go any further than this, believe me. If you see this and work with this, everything else will clear away. Simply this, that over the years I have built up this false idea of who I am, and therefore of what I should have from you and you. I'm a wonderful man, therefore you should love me, and all the rest of it, of what you owe me and all. So I have all these images, pictures of who I am. This is my hell, but I don't see it. I begin to see it. I begin to die to all these images, and even die to the fear of giving up my images, because it will come in. Then as I do this over and over, hard work over the years, studying hard, working hard on myself, I see that there's no fear at all in being nobody. Because this is what I was all along, but didn't see it and refused to see it, which does not mean that I don't exist. I'm here, but a totally new person is here. This one person, not divided from myself anymore. I am not divided from you. Therefore, I have no artificial religion, no artificial politics. I have should we use the phrase rightly? I have a natural religion, being one with myself. And it's no different from yours or yours or yours. Therefore, we're not in conflict. What are we trying to prove? You understand this. That'll be enough for today.